In today's lecture, I'm going to show you how we can make connections to the MySQL database server from PHP and how PHP works with MySQL. So already I have a project set up. I named the project week 9. Just set up the project with your name, and I also have all the files already ready. So paste all the files that I provide you and keep your set up your project, and then we can start from there. I am going to use some files. So first of all, index.php. This is the file I'm going to use. This is the site. So let's go localhost week 9 index.php. Okay, so this is the PHP page where we are landing first. Okay, now I will show you something like how to, first of all, how to do the connection. So this is a PHP file with connection information. So if you very carefully look at it, you'll see these things. So define is the function to, it's like a C++. It's C++ to defining constant, use define, right? So in PHP, define, it takes two parameters. First one is you define the constant name, and then the second parameter is the constant value. Okay, so I have defined one constant db user, the value is root. So by db user, I mean I'm naming it as a db user. So, and then db the database password, let's set it to CSC. Okay, and then database db underscore host, I set it to localhost, and db underscore name, so database name, site name. So basically I will be, through these my PHP scripts, I'll be trying to access the site name database, right, that we already have created inside the local host with the username root and the password CSC. So the built-in function is MySQLi underscore connect. It takes four parameters. First parameter is it will take the host name, where host name is where your MySQL server is running. In our case, it's localhost, right? Then the username, the password, and the database that we are going to connect. So it will take these four parameters. First of all, the server address, in our case, is localhost, right? The user ID, uh, the username for who can access that server, the password for that username, and finally the database inside that server that we are going to access. And the MySQLi connect is the function. Okay, so here one thing, you may have one question. The question is like why we are using this special character in front, right? There is a specific reason for that. So the function call is preceded by this is called the error suppression operator. Error suppression operator. Okay. So if we don't put this, the error would be like more visible. So in some cases, we don't want the error to be very much visible, because this is preferable in this specific case, since the error is going to be handled by another function. So if this connection is not successful, it's going to be handled by this die function, right? So, okay. And if the connection is successful, or if the connection is not successful, what will happen is whatever result it gets is assigned in $dbc, that means in this variable, and then we can later on use this variable for all of our connection purposes. So basically what you are doing is you are creating a connection object, so a successful connection object or a failed connection object. So if you have a successful connection object stored in $dbc, later on you can use this $dbc for different purposes. So just a summary. First, we are assigning 4 constants using the define function, 4 constants, and each of them we are setting a value for them. Then we are calling the MySQLi connect with the 4 parameters that it needs to connect to the database. If it fails, it will actually kill the connection, and whatever result it is, that connection object will be assigned to $dbc to dbc this variable. Okay, and finally this thing MySQLi set character set underscore character set char set. It takes the database connection object, and the second parameter is setting the encoding for all future communication. And finally, you may have one question that why we are not including the closing PHP tag, right? So we don't have any closing PHP tag here. This is actually allowed in PHP if your final line, if your script is ending with PHP code. So, and it has some benefits. Uh, so basically, your question is like why we don't have like something like this, right? Yeah, this is done with in purpose. Purposefully, this is done because if your script is ends with PHP code, so there is no HTML or any other thing after this, you can actually still end your code without a closing PHP tag because there is some benefits in it. We'll discuss this in the later discussions. For now, just know that this is allowed because the last line is also a PHP code. So basically, we are doing this. We are creating a PHP script which creates a connection and assigns that connection object to a variable. And that variable is actually going to be used subsequently. Okay. Okay, so let's go to index.php. Okay, so if we go here, it runs home, then register. Okay, now let's look at register to this page, register, okay? So here is register.php. So here you see, okay, so what it does is register.php. The action here is also register.php. So if you click on submit, it will actually return to the same page. And what does it have? It has a text field with first name, last name, email address, password, confirm password, and a submit button, right? So this is how the form looks like. You can see it here. This is how the form looks like. But if you click on submit, it will actually return the same page, right? Because the action says action value is also register.php. So once you submit, it will refresh the register page. Now what will happen is $_server request method now becomes post, right? Because the method we mentioned is post. So if it's already submitted, this will be true. First, what it will do is you are adding require MySQLi connect. So basically, you are calling this function, right? MySQLi connect PHP. So you're calling this function, it will create a connection. It will give you a connection object inside what? Inside this DBC, like $DBC. So this $DBC variable will have the connection object. So next, what you are going to do is you are checking if the first name is not empty. So you are checking first name, last name, email, password, okay? And then if the password is not empty, you are checking if the password field and a confirmed password field are the equal, right? So you are checking if all of them are filled up. So you are checking all of them are filled up. If that's true, right? Okay, so what you are doing is if each field is filled up, so first name, you're actually creating a variable fn with uh, with the content of that text field by using trim. Basically, you are trimming if you're putting empty space at the beginning or the end of your first name. Sometimes actually we mistakenly put empty space, right? So you are trimming that using you are using that $dbc connection object, and this is MySQLi real escape string. So this is the built-in function in PHP. So basically, you are using the connection object and the field value, uh, and using this function to create an object for the first name, create an object for the last name, for the email, right? For the password, right? So you are creating one object each for each of the fields. And then you are here, if you don't have like any error. So every time if you haven't um, filled up any field, you are actually assigning it to this error to this error string. And if finally the error string is not empty, that means all of them have been filled up, then you are building your query. You see here the query says like insert into users. Already we know about the users table, right? Insert into the user's first name, last name, email, password, registration date, values. What values we are inserting? We are inserting the fn. This is the object we created out of the first name. This is the object that we created out of the last name. This is from the email, right? For the password, we created an object, $p, and then we are encoding it with sh82 512. And finally, now this one will take the system time. So basically, you are building a query. This query, $q, this is just a string. You are building a string, right? Which has this thing, insert into users, the columns that you want to fill in with the values. Values are the objects that you created with the filled out values. Okay. And then what you are doing, what you have to do is you have to run this thing, MySQLi underscore query. The first parameter for this is going to be the connection object, and the second parameter for this is going to be the query object, that the query, the $q that we just have built, right? So what this is going to do is this function is going to use this connection object. So by this connection object, basically you are already connected to the database. What you are going to do is you are going to execute whatever is inside this. So what does it have? It has a command, insert into users with all the values, right? So if this one is successful, it will return something inside R. So, okay. But if it's not successful, then it will be empty. So if it's successful, if it says like if $R, that means it has some value, or if this is true, then you are showing a message saying the registration is successful. Otherwise, you show some system error, you uh, print a result with system error, and then MySQL I underscore error with the DBC connection object. This one actually will give you the whole error thing, like the whole error message. Okay. And finally, you have to close the connection. That's the final thing that you have to do. So overall, what you are doing is you are taking value from each field, creating an object or inside a variable for that field, and then you are building if these errors array is empty, that means all the fields are filled up, then you are building a string here carefully that it looks like an exact SQL query, and then you are using MySQLi underscore query function with the connection object and that query string, right? Okay, so let's do this and see what happens. First name, say like Bill Clinton, email address. Okay, let's keep it empty. Password. Okay, let's try to do this. Okay. Oh, okay. So first of all, these failed to do like, okay, so there is some mistake here. So basically, MySQL Connect, this is inside the same folder with register, right? But in my, okay, here I had gone to the root folder. So it's on the same folder. So it failed on the first page. So what happened is now uh, I actually went here, like I reached here. I reached here and this one actually gave me the errors. Now I have set the correct path. Let's just keep others empty. Now you see, it was able to create the connection because it got the right path for the file. But by checking the other fields, it's finding that other fields are empty. So it's giving all the message, checking all the messages and giving you those messages. So let's do this thing, Bill Clinton, then Clinton at usa.gov. Password, again, I'm putting anything CSC, same password. Register. Yeah, now it says you are now registered. In chapter 12, we will be able to log in. Okay, we're not going to log in. We are just registering a user. So let's go to our database to see if that registration was successful. So this was our user table, right? Okay, now you see that we have created a new user, Bill Clinton. That one is now added to the users table. So basically through a PHP script, we connected to the database, we will build up a query, and then we ran the query, right? Yeah, let's add one more record. Another record, Joe Biden. Okay, so one thing is you have to make sure that these passwords are same, right? So let's have a different password and see what happens. Yeah, so it checks and sees that the passwords doesn't match, so the record entry fails. So let's have the same password, CSC, CSC. Okay, so something to show here. These fields are sticky. That's why they're not gone, right? Okay, now I have put the same password. Let's check here if a new user has been added. I refresh it. Now you see Joe Biden has been added. Okay. Next, let's go to view users. If I click on this, now it shows you all 27 users. You see Joe Biden's, sorry, the ID was 28, but we're seeing 27 records because we had deleted the ID 18. You remember, right? In the when we were showing the deletion command, we deleted one record. So basically, we have 27 users. Now it's showing you all the users with the date of registration. Okay, so how this view users thing is working? Let's go and see. So basically how this PHP script is connecting to the database and pulling all the data. So these view users, you see this one, uh, again, this one also creates a uses that PHP script to connect to the database, right? And then everything will be, the connection object will be stored in $dbc. Then it's creating a query. You are making the query here. Select concat last name. Last name is a column name, comma, first name. So basically, you are concating the last name with first name with a comma in between and creating a new column, and as name. So, and you are naming that new column name as name, and date format. You are taking the date format, registration date. You are taking the registration date and formatting it to month, day, and year. So the registration date, whatever it has, it may have hour, minute, second. You are just removing them and formatting it to show you just month, day, and year. Uh, Naming it at dr. So you're renaming that new column as dr from users ordered by registration date ascending. So then you are doing some sorting based on the registration date. And then you are running that query, right? And if that query is successful, all the records are uh, returned inside this R object. So there are multiple records, 27 rows, right? So then there is the SQL, there is the PHP built-in function to count the number of rows that are returned. So 27 rows are returned from here. It will give the count 27. So num, the $num num variable now will have the value of 27. If the query had failed, the R would have been 0. So num also would have been 0. So basically, if this one has greater than 0, that means these query execution returned at least one record. Okay, so if you have more than 0, that means you have something to show. You are first showing a paragraph with saying there are currently these number of registered users. Then you're creating a table with table header, name and date registered. And then inside this $R, you have 27 records, right? So using this function, basically you are fetching one row at a time. You're fetching one row at a time. And then that row has these things, right? Name and dr. because we named the new columns as dr and name. So basically, you are taking the value from each row and putting them in one table cell. Finally, you are ending the table, and you have to close your connection. Okay, so let's go and see. So this is basically we are building a HTML table. This is the paragraph. Then we are building HTML table, going through the record that was in $R. Each time we are fetching one row and putting one of the values under the in one cell and the date in another cell. Okay, so for now, everyone was added today, right? So the query itself said sort them based on the registration, right? Based on the registration date, but all of them have now the same date, so it's not, you cannot see the sorted results. But if different users were added in different dates, then you could have actually see the users in sorted way. Okay. Okay, and then finally the changing the password, right? Changing the password, clinton@usa.gov. Current password, we had put CSC, and then let's put a new password, GOAL, GOAL, GOAL. Okay, then we change the password. So basically the password gets updated. How this is being done, let's go to this file. So password.php is getting executed here. You see that if it's not submitted, it has a list of text fields, right? Just list of text fields. And the method is post. And the action says password.php. So if it's submitted, the same page will get loaded and it will check if the request method is post. That's true. Then it will first create the connection. The connection object will be in $dbc. Then it will keep on checking if any of the fields are empty. If the field is empty, then it will save that like error message inside this uh, string array. Otherwise, it will create an object out of that email and the connection object. So eventually, if all the fields are filled up, you will actually create uh, objects for email, for password, uh, and then you will check if and your new password and the confirm new passwords are the same. Okay, okay, you will do this thing. Okay. Okay, and here is one thing, like I will actually keep this for as a task for you. So basically, uh, when you are actually checking the password, changing the password, first I think you have to check whether your previous password matches the password in the database. If it's not matching, it should show you some errors. Otherwise, like what kind of logic is getting executed, that in one is actually kept here. Okay, so here is one suggestion for you. Since our next exam will be like more hands-on, so you have to write some more of the queries or more short answers. Like in the previous exam, we had only 3 or 4 short answers. And many of you haven't done very well there. So to make sure that you want to do very well in the next exam, make sure that you go through like all the exercises that I showed you today. This is very extremely important. You set up your database, you insert records there, you try to connect your PHP with your database, try to add users to your database, change things, everything through PHP, how actually you're making the connection. You have to have a very good understanding of this. Okay, I have showed you two of the pages. I have explained how register.php is working, how view users is working, and the change password, I have showed you a part of it. The only thing I am keeping it as home task is to see the logic, how in case you are making a like a wrong assumption. Suppose, let's see if it's like this. Bill, was it Bill or it's Clinton? USA.gov, the current password. I forgot the current password. What? Oh, goal. Okay. Okay, let's make give it a wrong thing. See if it still works. Okay, it says the email address and the password does not match on file. So the reason here is new password and the confirmed password matches, but the old password I have put it wrong. So there is checking for that. So that's the thing for you. Go through the script and see how actually all these checkings are done here. Okay. Um, feel free to make changes there and just make your hand dirty with all these practices. This is extremely important. Otherwise, this is the key to do well in the next exam. And again, the reminder